Sorry about that. So I am coming to live YouTube to document some experiences that I've been having and to talk about my experiences as I go on with my everyday life. So it turns out that some years ago, there were like people who were um, being documented for their use of methamphetamine and other types of drugs and things. And before you know it, an entire community was built um, on the basis in which either substantiated whether or not people use methamphetamine, or they were created on a basis in which they no longer had applicable space for the individuals who were partaking in methamphetamine to participate. Fast forward on to today, I had my own experiences with methamphetamine, and quite naturally, when there's people whom do not engage in things that you engage in, they tend to be opposites, and opposites do attract. Um, we won't necessarily talk about the basis in which they attract, but the point is that they attract nonetheless. And we can't always dictate what people can do for us. We can't always dictate how they'll be helpful to us, and we can't always dictate whether or not we need. Now, I don't think that support means that somebody encourages me to do drugs. I don't think that's by support. It means that somebody gives me money to do drugs. Now, if that's just one way about supporting someone, and the alternative is to not support, then that's fine. I don't have any problems with individuals suggesting that or stating that they don't want to participate by helping, whether it's money or giving them a place to stay. Those are things that uh, in other words, choices that people can make. It's a free world, to a great extent, and people are free to make choices that they choose to make. As it pertains to me, and how I would basically support myself, how I would live, or if I would live at all, which is very strange, but I'll get there in a minute. Um, if it's about living, then I probably wouldn't live with supports, right? I probably wouldn't live well with having uh, an alternate source of support uh, outside of my family, or outside of a helping hand that describes themselves as family, perhaps. So in this case, I have to begin thinking that the system, and or not just the system, but the use of such applications such as movies or TV shows and things of that nature, I have to begin to think that the intention of making such a show and having such implications involved was to alienate the individuals who were doing drugs, and not just that, but it was to force them into places like rehabs and transitional homes, or it was to force them into the hands of other people who was going to take care of them or not, and or it was going to force them on the street to where they would ruin or fall apart, fall apart and or even die. Now, that could be some things that transpired in someone's mind. That can be a transitional thought. A transitional thought is something that comes up in a moment of thinking, and leads a person to another thought, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it is a complete thought. It just means that it's another thought, one thought to another thought, and that's it. Okay. So when people begin to associate themselves with choices that come from transitional thoughts that are not incomplete thought. I mean, that are not, excuse me, that are not complete thoughts. Then they begin to associate themselves with things that essentially does not lead them anywhere. Perhaps that could be something that comes up when somebody says, "Well, hey, you're smoking methamphetamine, and what are you going to do with yourself? You don't have any job, you don't have any kids, but you're not going to school, you're not paying any bills, as if that was a responsibility, and that's very interesting. But I'll get back to that later too. So there are often things that people associate themselves with, like responsibilities that are not ours all the time. So perhaps the roles got reversed, and or the roles got switched as it pertains to what I was obligated to do, and or what the other individuals obligated to do. I mean, you have other people who smoked methamphetamine, and they didn't have any children, but that's not necessarily something that will come up as it pertains to their responsibilities. But if you ask people whom might dictate some of the choices or decisions that they make, or some of the choices or decisions that they think they want other people to make, some of these things come up. The bills, their resources, support systems, and things of that nature. So they begin to they begin to use that weight to move people around. Hey, I'll see you a little later, okay?
Okay, I came past to bring you a drink, but I'm gonna go see Damon real quick.
All right. All right. So I just had to tell some dude who was coming to visit that I'll see him another time. So it turns out that once some people were talking about sending people to my home and shit, I had to really believe them because they ended up doing it. Now I got my own smoke, and I'm not necessarily interested in smoking with them, but I don't want to use nobody up until they're not able to provide for themselves, or anybody else for that matter. But I just got a feeling, a strange feeling, that when those things tend to happen, that there's a reminder somewhere that this is what the intentions were from other people. And if it's just to sit around and say, hey, this person seems like another person or reminds me of another person, and now all of a sudden people start to forget how they tend to use people up, and stuff like that. So my point is, I just had to express that real quick. But there's other things. So going back a little bit, based upon the observation that I've been undergoing and whatnot, it seems like people have been using those weights, the weight that they put on other individuals, and the weight that they put on particular parts of the community and stuff. They move those weights around, and they force those onto people, and those don't tend to be the things that drive people all the time. It tends to be other things. When you have, like, people have to pay attention to the time. People have to pay attention to their experiences. People have to pay attention to their environment, what kind of people they around, what kind of groups they're a part of, what kind of people drive their influence and stuff like that. And how does that actually influence the people whom or due to be uh, undergoing their own experiences. So if there are people whom are born into the world and don't know anything about drug use and stuff like that, so perhaps they might know or hear something about drug use because they see people or because they're told stories. If these things are the things that secretly begin to influence another person, then how come people don't continue to take on the responsibility to watch after them in a way in which provides them safety? Now, I understand that some individuals will actually take up on that chance to be as responsible could be, to continue to make sure that these folks are safe and whatnot. But then there's that other element of surprise, where people are being influenced by other people, and then now they change their mind, and so they're not able, or they're not uh, interested in facilitating safety, but instead they start trying to pressure them to kill themselves, or they start trying to pressure them to kill other people, or they start pressuring them to be injured, for noticeability, you know or because they think that they don't like the person because they're not listening to them, or they're not doing what they want them to do. And these are things that it might not have anything to do with the individual who's smoking methamphetamine. It might just be a part of another person's mind, their interests, or their lack of interest, not having an interest in facilitating somebody's ability to think that they're safe, ability to know that they're safe, and their ability to actually be safe and be sure. So they're not facilitating a person's ability to be sure about being safe somewhere. Not even in their own home, not in their family, not in friendships, not in relationships. And not in hospitals and stuff like that. Not in portions of the community that suggest that they are from an operational standpoint, administrations, and other types of things. It just seems like to me that people, they get in the way of other individuals, and they almost don't care. And if they did care, they want to put too much emphasis on how big they are. So now all of a sudden you got to worry about moving them from the roots of a tree to the top of a branch, and it just might actually be an individual. So that might be something that a person has to do. But for me, I'll rather not, because that does something like get my hands dirty, and that doesn't have to be the job that pertains to me, but that have to be something that I would have to think about. That might have to be something that I would consider as something that influences another person or another something for the reasons in which you do, but maybe not uh, because it applies to me. Um, so that comes up in a very interesting sort of way. Um, I just thought that I was annoyed by people thinking that I was inviting them to watch me smoke methamphetamine, and I wasn't. You know, I was getting annoyed by people sitting around trying to dictate and dictate my moves, or dictate my responses, or dictate some of the things that I'm thinking about, or dictate who I'm working with and how I'm working, and if I'm working at all, and then trying to do it for free, and then all this kind of shit. Like it's not just highway robbery, but it's a whole bunch of things involved. And then they try to associate people with loss of time or time at all, as if it has anything to do with me. Like, people, do you know people? And if you don't know them, then you ain't expect them to do this and that and third. But if that wasn't necessarily something that you would have planned, or something that you wasn't interested in these types of things, then you can't dictate what the future will be. It's just a bunch of different things that comes up, and now all of a sudden you get to thinking about them, and so you start making your choices. But try not to use any of those weights to put them on people, and then now all of a sudden they can't move, and now you taking them hostage, and now all of these types of things, because these are the elements of surprise that begin to do quite a few different things for people whom think that they have everything all figured out. And while I'm not necessarily suggesting that people have interest in changing and stuff like that, because that's not my job. My job isn't to change people. My job is to live a life that I was born to live, and that's it. You know, so I think that when people start talking about what other people act like, or what other people do, what they're thinking, and all this kind of shit, it just changes the reality altogether. And they think sometimes that they're playing games on people. They know sometimes that they're playing games on people. They don't give a fuck sometimes that they're playing games on people. But when people start going around talking about they want people dead and all this kind of shit, or they're pushing them, and they pushing them to make them think that they want people dead and all this kind of shit, it doesn't actually, it should have such a toll on individuals as it do to um the situations. You know what I mean? Like, how dare anybody sit around and try to act as if they don't understand what's actually bothering people, to the degree in which they begin to think that they want to make decisions that are not necessarily theirs to make. So all of these places that people exist, they didn't got in these places, and they start trying to corrupt the minds of people who belong to other people. This is bullshit. It's bullshit. It's what people were doing, and it's probably something that they've been doing for a long time. But I don't have to help them continue. I don't have to fucking like them. I don't have to be around them. If I ever felt like I wanted somebody did, then I'm probably allowed to think it, and I'm probably allowed to say it. But it's not necessarily okay. It's just when people get to those places in their mind, when they get to those places in their heart, when they get to those places, these become defense mechanisms. They become offensive mechanisms, reactions as offensive mechanisms. And people don't have the understanding that they have anymore as it pertains to a sociological experience that is living life. I mean, you fit in all these categories and stuff like that when you begin to thinking about what it means to be a person. You know what it means to be a person. You communicate. One of the things that you do as a basis of being a person is communication, and they try to suggest like who you communicate with. It's not necessarily about jobs. It's about um school. It's about community. It's about sustaining and building. It's not about culling. These people, and they got attitudes, and they got experiences that suggest that they fuck around and kill people in groups of people, and they kill children and all this kind of shit. They torment people, for the fuck of it, and they have fun doing it. And these people don't understand that those kinds of experiences aren't experiences that people pay for. Those aren't experiences that people collect their kids and take them to events and shit. They don't do that kind of shit. But these are the types of things that people don't want to be around. They don't want to be involved in, and they make it seem like we don't have no other choice. We don't have no choice but to go along and get along, and all of a sudden people are dying and shit, and there's no repercussions, and they think that people are supposed to chop it up and say they forgive people. They don't have to. Forgiveness is about a personal choice to forgive something of someone or someone for something, and you don't have to. That's not going to dictate the time in which somebody's punished and shit like that. I mean, once you start thinking about who's involved and how they're involved and stuff, these things are in a person's mind. That's the kind of weight that influences people, and they don't have to. So that's what I'm saying. Every time somebody comes around and they start talking about how I'm being asked to forgive somebody for something that I think they did to me, and then everybody want to run around and say I didn't do anything, and then they want to talk about who did and who didn't and shit. Now all of a sudden they want to make it seem like they're chasing people down because they think somebody did something to them. Now the point is, if there isn't a God on this world, if there isn't a God in this world, excuse me, that understands what's going on, then how can I, how can I understand anything that's going on? Like, you got people that's getting hit in the face, people that's being stolen from, people that's being murdered, people that's being tormented, and then they want to sit up around us and basically make it seem like, well, if they don't know who's doing it, then they don't know when it can stop. They don't know how it can stop. They don't know how to defend themselves. And these are the types of people that they're taking advantage of. These are the type of people that they can care less about. These are the type of people that they want to steal from. These are the type of people that they're killing and thinking about giving a fuck less about. These are the type of people that they want to have sex with. These are the type of people that they want to steal children from. These people who do this kind of shit are some very fucked up ass people. And then this is when it starts getting really interesting, when I start characterizing what I think about the type of shitty ass people they are, and the type of shitty ass people they can be based upon how they treat people. So um anyway, I'm just going to end that here, and I'll start on another day about some things that I'm thinking or feeling about, the experiences in which I'm having. Again, today is February 13th, 2024. I was blessed to be awake today. I hope that nobody try to show up and try to steal my blessing, because it might have been a blessing that I began to feel like I had or was being given once I woke up. You know what I mean? But these people show up like as if the blessing, me saying that I'm feeling blessed to be alive or blessed to be awake, as if it's translating into some pocket change or something, and they want to come and collect my money. This is the shit that I don't fucking like. It don't feel good and stuff like that, and it tries to take away or deplete the blessing. And it's just a word, blessing is just a word, but it's probably a loaded word. It has things in it, depending on how people use it and stuff like that. But if it don't belong to nobody, if it belong to me, it don't belong to nobody else. You know what I mean? So if I can unfold the blessings and find the money in it, then that's for me to spend. That ain't for nobody else to spend. I'm tired of people showing up talking about they trying to collect my shit. I'm tired of people showing up talking about they want my shit. I'm tired of people showing up talking about that they feel less blessed if they don't get something that somebody else have or somebody else deserve to have. That's evil. That's evil because that's not who you're supposed to be giving your shit to. You're supposed to be keeping your shit. So anyway, God bless y'all, and it's many gods out here you don't necessarily want to know, and I don't necessarily want to tell. So peace.